Hello, my friends. We are back in the nuance corner for today's video, back to talking about the shortcomings of Eat Predators and some issues that I have with its founder, Alexa Nikolas. I have already made videos about this. In the most recent one, I said that I didn't think I was going to continue to cover Alexa in perpetuity. That is still true. However, so much happened, like, immediately as soon as I finished editing the initial video about Eat Predators. I posted it and I had, like, this gut feeling. I was like, I know I'm not the only person who thinks this. At some point, other people are going to be thinking this and looking for videos, and I want them to have something kind of nuanced and gentle to get them thinking about this rather than, like, websites that are made with Alexa's name that seem to not necessarily have the best information on them, articles that are being posted that I don't co-sign. Like, I had a certain amount of, like, while I wasn't rushing, I was very much like, this is the time for that particular evolution of my thoughts to go out into the universe. So I did. I finished the video, and this video is definitely part 2 to that video. Like, I'm not slowing down to re-explain things in this one. That first video is packed with nuance and explanations of who I want to be in conversation with, people who are going to still validate Alexa as a survivor and not call her allegations into question, while also still holding her accountable. You gotta watch the first one. I don't even mind if you watch it on, like, 1.5 speed, but, like, you'll get the point from that one, and then you can come back and enjoy the follow-up one. Because I'm really not trying to be a drama channel here. That's very much not the vibe that I'm trying to come across with in either this video or that one. But by right of this one being kind of me rattling off different things that have happened, it is going to have more of, like, a quick catch you up to speed vibe. We are still operating from a place of high nuance here. We don't think Alexa Nikolas is a liar. We just think that she's making some missteps with a platform that she has. That's totally fair and valid criticism to make, and to that end, using clips in a transformative fair use context is also fine. I didn't get copyright claimed for the clips that I used in Eat Predators, but we'll be trying to use clips from the Just Trish podcast in this one, and hopefully that's also fine. Before we start doing anything that requires new clips, though, I do want to talk about clips from something that is no longer available on Alexa's YouTube channel. This was mentioned in both of my prior videos. Her Alexa Nikolas Exposes Drake Bell video. I have clips from that, and I would like to talk about that because I think seeing this version of Alexa might actually make a lot of sense, even just for me, myself, why so many of us kind of bought into this and now have such complicated feelings about the about face. So I didn't do an awesome job of actually giving a trigger warning on my last video about this because it's kind of implied, but, we are going to be talking about domestic abuse and the grooming of a minor and getting into the weeds a little bit more on the Drake Bell case. I'm going to be doing that by showing you some clips from the NBC YouTube channel coverage of the Drake Bell sentencing and clips from Alexa's video, which I was able to find on Twitter and have linked on my most recent community post as well as in the description of this video. I think this is helpful to watch. You probably will get enough of a vibe from it just based on what I'm taking you through with it together here, but let's see what Alexa thought of Drake as of, last October. We'll be getting into more debunking since that's just a fixture anytime I talk about these people, because I still have people giving misinformation in my comments until I block them. I don't even read the whole comment most of the time when I block somebody, but I did see something stupid enough to literally believe a little girl, and I was like, yeah, that's what I do. That's feminism. Feminism is being stupid enough to believe a little girl. You believe the little girl. That's what being a feminist is. It's not listening to somebody's lawyer try to get them less time. It's being stupid enough to believe a little girl. If you have problems with that, you can either just not watch my videos, which I would love, or you can leave a comment and I can hide you so that people who watch my videos and enjoy them don't have to deal with you being nonsensical in the comments. To believe Drake's victims is not to be stupid, it's to stand with victims and survivors, which is, for a lot of people, myself included, a pretty core tenet of their activism, their foundational feminist beliefs. Really not a gotcha. So, I'm gonna try to cut in a little bit in this so that it's not just a big wall of clips, but let's see what Alexa thought when she did have that in common with me in terms of pretty unflinchingly siding with the little girl victim.
An alleged dad that pleaded guilty to child endangerment with a female fan. Wow, Drake. What a great dad you are. And you just pleaded guilty because you wanted to be closer to your son. And you smirk at your victim's face, but then you have a very innocent look with the judge. And, bro, I don't like you. I don't like whatever you're trying to do. I don't like it.
Your Honor, I just want to say today that I accept this plea because my conduct was wrong. I'm sorry that the victim was harmed in any way, but that was obviously not my intention. I have taken this matter very, very seriously. Your Honor, I just want to say today that I accept this plea.
I just want to say today that this plea. But my conduct was wrong. So what part of it, Drake, was wrong? What are you exactly admitting to, and what's wrong with you also, by the way? What the fuck is wrong with you?
The victim was harmed in any way, but that was obviously not my intention. I have taken
was
this matter
not
very,
my
very
intention.
Seriously?
Was not my intention. What was your intention, Drake Bell, then? What was your intention? What was your intention when you were talking to a fucking child, man? What was your intention? Why don't you let us know what your intention was? Talking to a child. What's your intention?
Listen, I have made a pretty solid argument, I could say about 2 hours worth of it, that I don't think that Alexa is necessarily some groundbreaking, boundary pushing feminist, right? But she's good at this. Because a lot of feminism is simple questions, like, what was your intention? What was his fucking intention? She is good at that. I mean, we don't know how good she is at it directly, one-on-one, but in terms of having a radio show, she's doing a good job of employing that as something that makes her very easy to listen to about this. Because she's right. And because in this one way, because I will give credit where it is due, Alexa is being a good feminist. A lot of basic feminism is asking for answers to very simple questions. What was Drake's intention? Why are we suddenly okay with Drake Bell just indiscriminately, inappropriately texting minors just because he thought that this one, who was 11 when they started interacting, was slightly older than she actually was? Why does the fact that he only pled guilty to part of it suddenly negate the fact that former ex-girlfriends and other partners of Drake's have come forward and corroborated similarly disturbing stories? What was his intention? Why would it not be expected that this guy who was on a heavily syndicated children's sitcom would be mostly being reached out to by children, by people who it would be inappropriate for him to have sexual conversations with? harmful to minors, even like what he pled guilty to, because he did plead guilty. He's doing a little PR run right now and pretending like he was like conspiratorialized into it, but like he pled guilty. He said he did it. And I mean, it looks like Alexa and I used to completely agree with this until whatever information that she got from Drake Bell that she claims she's spending weeks going over convinced her to take this video down. She's been highly criticized for taking the video down, but hasn't put it back up. I think on Twitter she did refer to it as being privated, so maybe at some point it will come back up, but I doubt it. I think Drake Bell had an interest in convincing Alexa to not have this video up anymore. And I, thankfully, am not interested in what Drake Bell is interested in. I am interested in regaining the 1% of people being on the side of this victim that used to exist because of this video that got scrubbed out of existence because of Drake Bell's shitty little PR campaign. That's what I'm interested in. So we, like Alexa did in this deleted video, are going to be listening to the victim's statements. And I'm going to take you through some of how Alexa responded to that because it paints the larger picture of what this hour was. We are not watching the entire thing because we have kind of a lot to cover today. But I will be linking to all of my video sources in the description below where you can find the victim saying her own testimony on camera, as well as the written statement that was released through People after the fact. There's lots of documents on this. People love to tell you that watching the trial shows you something, or that there's secret witnesses or something, but we have what the lawyer said, we have what Drake said to the judge, and we have what the victim said. Again, I know enough about my own belief system to know where I weigh what the victim said compared to where I weigh what Drake Bell and his slimy little lawyer said to the judge. You have enough information to draw whatever conclusions you draw.
When I was 13, I went to him for boy advice. He told me that I was beautiful and that boys were stupid. He then sent me a photo of myself that he had screen capped from my Instagram, telling me that I was, quote, such a cutie.
He had initially pleaded not guilty to both charges. So initially he pleaded not guilty and then he's like, I'm guilty. All right. Isn't that how it always seems to go? Sorry. Prosecutors said that Mr. Bell engaged in a conversation with a 15-year-old girl that was at times sexual in nature. Are we seeing this? 15? Wait, why don't they say the age of Drake Bell at the time? Isn't that interesting? Did you guys see? There's no age of Drake Bell. How much older was Drake Bell than this 15-year-old girl that he pleaded guilty about, by the way?
Another instance of creepy behavior happened when I was spending time with him at the age of 14. He told me that he couldn't believe how much I'd grown since he last saw me. He said that I wasn't little anymore, and I was, quote, a woman now. When I was 15, I noticed a huge shift regarding his treatment and attitude towards me. When I was younger, he was sweet and actually wanted to talk to me about my life. But at 15, he started sending me messages about how, quote, hot I was.
Yeah. Was it 31? Oh, so he was 31 and she was 15. Yeah. See, my predator was 33 and I was 16. So, yeah.
Okay, again, I'm talking to you like we've already spent 2 hours together and you already know how hard I find it to criticize women and how much I just have struggled to make sure that I am being so fair to Alexa, right? And I think part of that is making sure that it's clear when the criticisms that I make of her do and do not apply. By the time we get to a more recent clip that I'm responding to, you'll understand why I say that. But like when I'm saying that I think that we're going to talk later about kind of over identifying into other people's trauma in a way that recenters it around herself. This is not what I'm referring to there. I think it is genuinely helpful for people who have been groomed and seen the inside of power differentials like this to say, like, hey, this also matches what my experience was. Both because it gets people thinking about the fact that, like, oh, right, relationships that started when somebody is a teenager aren't like normal, and also it like helps the victim to feel less alone and less like they got convinced into something that was transparently evil and that they should have known better then. So I do think that in this case, I really like the way that she ties it into her own experience. There's also, I'm not unpacking Alexa's trauma. She's written about it. This is a case of a musician grooming somebody over the internet. Like, of course, it's something that she would relate to.
He pleaded guilty. I mean, I can't say this enough. Pleaded guilty. Okay, sorry, let's just continue.
In the summer of 2017, I messaged him, telling him that I was going to see him in concert in the following months. He replied by telling me that he couldn't wait to see me. He also asked me, quote, "How old are you now?" I told him 15.
This is like legit so similar to my abuser that I'm having a little bit of a moment. And this is how my predator looks at me, by the way, probably looks when people tell him about what I came forward about.
And told me to, quote, "Hurry up, don't smile at me." Not too long after that, his messages to me became blatantly sexual. This eventually led to many months of inappropriate messages and photos being exchanged over Instagram and Snapchat. The photos exchanged included photos of my body.
Whoa. Why is he crossing his arms at this point? He's like, this isn't Drake and Josh, Drake. You're not on set with Dan Schneider.
And again, in terms of my criticisms of her only holding when I'm actually meaning them, I gave her some shit in my last video because I felt like she fake cries and kind of turns up the tears over certain things recently. And that's also not something that I really feel here. Like, this video does feel genuine to me, which is why it is so much sadder that it's gone.
Wow. He allegedly sent his genitals to a child? Ooh. I am I'm pretty deeply e-predators, Victoria. Yeah, e-predators. Thank you. I am deeply disturbed right now and angry. He used his power, allegedly. This is a fan. This is a fucking fan.
1st, 2017, my aunt took me to the Odeon Concert Club to watch him perform. That night, the defendant took me backstage to be alone with him. He started kissing me, and the night ended in him having me perform oral sex on him twice.
It's upsetting. I hadn't heard this yet, so I'm sorry. This is a child. Now I'm so angry when I think back at what we were watching at the dinner party last Sunday. What he ends up saying about all of this after he pleaded guilty. I'm like so deeply disturbed by Drake Bell.
He is the epitome of evil. I deserved better.
She said he is the epitome of evil.
Than to be used for his sick desires and for my suffering to be used for his amusement. Jared Drake Bell.
Look at him. He looks like he's amused listening to his fucking victim talk about what happened to her. He looks like he's amused by it. Does he not look like he's amused by it? You amused, Drake Bell? By what your victim is saying had allegedly happened to her? Do you find it amusing? Are you shocked? Didn't you plead guilty? Didn't you plead guilty?
Another thing in this video that is now gone, as she has leaned further into kind of playing up tears and stuff in later videos, though, is her kind of criticizing Drake Bell for the same thing. Drake Bell did a lot of Nickelodeon sitcom face and body language acting during this statement, and because of the way that it was posted on this YouTube channel, they decided not to show the face of the victim, who at the time was 19 but had been underage at the time of the crime, and who you've probably already noticed this, but like, she still sounds so young. There's just no way. There's just no way that this man would have thought he was speaking to anybody but a child. But, you know, I don't even have to really make that argument because he never said it. He pled guilty. He said he did it. He said he distributed harmful materials to this minor.
Wait, hold on. By the way, why is he looking at her like this when he pleaded guilty? He's like acting as if he's never hurt. Like, he's like, but he pleaded guilty. Drake Bell, you pleaded guilty. And he's just looking at, it's like actor moves there. This is horrific to hear a child talking like this, that this happened to her. And you're literally smirking, acting like you have no idea what she's talking about. Dude, shame on you, man. Alleged, whatever. This is my opinion. Like, shame on you, dude.
Of note, in April and March of 2024, Alexa was liking every single Instagram post that Drake Bell made. She retweeted his music video, a level of support for his career that I did not notice her offering to Kesha, a survivor who she literally protested Sony for. Alexa has thrown her lot in with Drake Bell. Watching this, you may forget that, but don't. We are offering Alexa more nuance than she truly seems to have for the situation, because at the beginning of this episode of Eat Predators, she said the same thing I said in my 2-hour video. It's a similar situation with Corey Feldman, and that you can be a victim and also hurt other people. And she's willing to hold his feet to the fire about that until she learns what? That something terrible that happened to Drake Bell happened the same place that something terrible happened to her? Does that really change the truth of what she's saying so much that this video needed to be taken down? If this is not what she believes, if this is not what Eat Predators stands for anymore, and some thoughts we're going to be getting to on what she's increasingly showing Eat Predators to stand for, but like, that I think would require a whole new mission statement for people who have been supporting since this point to know that there's suddenly been such a radical change. This is a similar point to what I made in my Girl Defined chat video, where if this was just somebody who was going through all of this on a private scale, you know, they would probably have a little bit more grace from me in terms of what they're deconstructing. But you cannot be an activist leader, delete posts where you were calling for accountability, and then perform free promo for somebody. When people notice that you've changed your tune, they're not bullying and attacking you. They are genuinely asking you what you stand for, because they're not sure they stand with you anymore the way that they used to be. Again, I'm trying to be gentle, like, especially watching this stream, I'm thinking, you know, I see the vision. I see what Eat Predators was and could have been. But unfortunately, I also mostly see something that it is not anymore. Not only has Alexa moved away from using the platform of Eat Predators to amplify the voice of this one particular victim, She's also using it to actively attempt to silence the voices of people who are speaking out against Drake Bell. Alexa was in the comments of a video that was pointing out that Drake still has creepy and inappropriate relationships with minors, telling this person on their own platform to take it down. And I'm pretty sure that that's what she's referring to when she talked to the community early last week. Like, I'm 99% sure that everybody listened to what I said and didn't send my video to Alexa. Or maybe she read my description and saw that I really did not want a response from her. But she said, oh, I don't support people going onto their own platforms to spread things. And it's like, baby girl, you don't get to support that or not. You're not getting people to clock in and do their activism with you and only with you. And when you don't have the same opinion as other people, you don't get to go and silence them. You didn't get to do it when Christy Carlson Romano had Corey Feldman on the podcast. And you don't get to do it when people have valid criticisms and hesitations about the pedophile you have thrown your lot in with, Alexa. It is genuinely concerning to me to see somebody positioning themselves as an activist, not only commenting on somebody's TikToks and saying, take this down, but to screenshot your own comment on that person's video and put it on your Instagram story is just, it's just a level of like irresponsibility and lack of accountability that would never have happened if everybody we learned about in part 1 didn't get chased away the way that they did. It is absolutely none of Eat Predators' business if other people who are not affiliated with Eat Predators want to talk about Drake Bell. It is her business that people are spreading misinformation about Drake Bell and his victims in the comment sections of her videos and posts, and she's not doing anything about it, but she's more concerned with policing what other people are saying about her buddy, who is like her new big source for Eat Predators content and who was in a documentary with her. I could probably continue to talk about this whole Drake Bell thing for like a while, but it is still continuing to unfold. I do want to clarify that when I said in my video, I don't understand why Alexa is trying to align them with Pizzagate, I meant that in terms of my understanding of what the guys on the Boy Meets World cast were saying is that, like, we're not Pizzagate people, Pizzagate isn't real, and this might make it look like Pizzagate is real, and I don't like that because I don't want people to think I'm part of that. I don't think that they handled it well, but I think that there's a difference between saying, like I just think that, you know, I might not completely agree with the way that they said it, but wanting to be like, I did something wrong and also am not part of like a shady, secret, conspiratorial organization thing. Like, I understand wanting to make that clear, wanting to, like, again, not everybody likes to court conspiracy theorists the way that Alexa does, right? I'm not even saying that I align with these people politically. I am almost positive that I don't, if Topanga has anything to do with that, because she's married to the Saving Christmas guy. But again, nuance. I guess we're not in the corner, but like, my room's not very big. I'm in sight of the nuance corner right now. Nuance. I don't like these people, but I also do not think that they deserve to be affiliated with Pizzagate as if they have something to do with the concept of Pizzagate, when all they were saying is that they don't have something to do with the concept of Pizzagate. And trying to staple those two things together to make like a catchy graphic just felt very weirdly petty to me, but I apologize if I didn't like clarify that in the best way possible. Assorted other notes on Drake Bell. 1, he is shilling cryptocurrency. You can find that, as well as the fact that he has his location as Portugal on his Twitter, despite his whole I never moved to Mexico thing in the documentary. Portugal is not Mexico, but his new song is about moving to Mexico. So, like, even if I'm trying to believe this guy, I don't know what to believe. Number 2, he was linking to an actual conspiracy theorist at the end of his shitty music video about moving to Mexico. That's what I want to talk about next. So let's shelve Alexa for just a second. As with any article I mention or read from, you can find this in the source document in the description below. This is information that I found because the news site Passion Fruit posted about it. I've never read anything from Passion Fruit before, but a tweet came across my Twitter feed and I read it and I was like, oh my god, of course. Because like I've been saying since the day after the documentary came out and I started getting his music video pushed to me so hard on YouTube that, you know, there was something suspicious about this music comeback campaign being tied up with the documentary the way that it was. I didn't notice until I read this article, and this has since changed, but was the case, the end of the music video. So you have to make a decision when you post a YouTube video. If you've never uploaded one before, I'm peeling back the curtain here. If you want to link to another video directly at the end of your video, meaning the ones that are like here and here, not things that come up in the sidebar, but things that are actually embedded in your video to give somebody a link to click on to watch another video. Typically, if I'm uploading a video, I will link to another video of mine with like a similar vibe or subject matter at the end. Content creators are really encouraged to use that to like kind of guide people through finding their way through your content, right? So like I might specifically set the end screen of one of the other videos in my Pemberley Digital series to be my initial video about the Lizzie Bennett diaries. I have to do that manually, especially if I wanted to link to a video from somebody else's account. Because if I want just randomly one of my other videos that I've uploaded, I can click a box that says something like best for viewer. And that's going to do whatever their algorithm thing does and tell me what the computer thinks will be good for you off of what I've uploaded. And then that's what's up there. So in order for Drake to link to somebody else's video that wasn't on his account, somebody on his team, or he himself, I don't know, had to do this from the music video. I already said this, the music video and song are about him like moving to Mexico and there's some like dramatization of his trauma and of like him getting into car accidents and stuff. It feels weirdly reminiscent to me of the This Is Gospel music video, actually, both of which are just a little bit nonsensical. But anyway, the shitty little music video originally linked to a video called Matt Wallace Exposes Allegations Against Drake Bell. Witnesses speak out. And it is full of shit. I was thinking about like actually responding to it like piece by piece and being like, hey, this is what's bad and manipulative about this. And then I realized I don't think you guys are idiots. This like Matt Wallace exposes video is made for idiots. I don't think you're an idiot. I don't think you need me to actually tell you like people who are coming out after the fact and discrediting a victim's story, especially not, you know, in court under any kind of oath, just on some little Zoom call with a random YouTuber. Like, this is not evidence. These are not witnesses. If the court ruled that Drake Bell was disseminating harmful material to this minor, I don't care what an aunt or somebody who toured with Drake Bell says. I don't think that it discredits anything that the victim said. But unfortunately, looking at the comment section, it looks like a lot of people think that it does. People are like, oh, justice for Drake Bell. And it's like, I think he got away with a pretty like neutered version of justice when he didn't even finish serving his probation, actually. This video has 22,000 views, and it's from a channel with 69 subscribers. He linked to this from his music video because I think the music video was maybe a commercial for this in a way. He linked to this in his music video, and once it was called out that this person making these videos is not accurate or somebody who should be looked to as a source because it's somebody with conspiracy brain rot, the link in the music video was updated to another video that takes these same claims as evidence. Drake is very fond of this as evidence. That Twitter account that I told you about in our last video, Exposing Rich, he direct messaged them a link to this, which, like, Jared, you are not proving your case to me as a man who knows whose DMs to stay out of. Give it a rest. This video proves nothing. The fact that Drake Bell was victimized in his childhood proves nothing. I stand with the victims of Drake Bell. I stand with the victim who got an iota of justice in court, and I stand with the victims who have not. I believe the women who have come forward and said that he had inappropriate relationships with minor fans. I believe the women who came forward and said that he was abusive to them. I believe the woman who came forward and said that he attempted to drown her in a bathtub. I believe those women. And I do not believe that the fact that people wrote letters in support of Brian Peck after he did something monstrous to Drake Bell means that those women deserve any less of my sympathy or of my public support. This video is nothing. It's nothing. It's not evidence. If we're not accepting the victim herself giving a statement in court under oath as evidence, I'm not accepting this little Zoom call interview as evidence. And I think by linking to it from his music video, Drake Bell played his hand, right? Because that's what this was always about. That's why it's great that Eat Predators is giving him so much free promo, because people watched that video of everybody else but him getting exposed, and then now they don't have to feel guilty that they enjoy Drake Bell music or whatever, which I don't really understand how you could do so, but to each their own. That one's not even me being like morally superior in terms of never listening to anybody who's like a woman beater, but like just in terms of he's not good. He's not talented. He's not a talented actor. He's not a talented musician. He's a guy who was on a children's show and used the fact that he used to be famous on a children's show to manipulate and be inappropriate to fans, something to which he has pleaded guilty in court. He can do any kind of spin he wants to now. He can try to lean on the fact that he didn't get registered as a sex offender. It doesn't change the fact that he is a sex pest. Sex pest is not a legal category, right? Like, nobody is making up new information by saying that he has been charged with sexual misconduct. He just technically got out of being a sex offender. Like, he technically got out of finishing his probation. Like, he technically isn't a sex offender, but he has pleaded guilty to distributing harmful information to minors. So, like, people who are very excited to jump on people who wrongly refer to him as a sex offender are, like, focused on the wrong things. But yeah, no, Drake Bell's not a sex offender. He is a sex pest, an abuser, a serial abuser, it seems like. Somebody who misunderstands his position of privilege over young fans, and generally a piece of shit. That's my take, and it's one that's getting more and more solidified every day. So, following the release of the Quiet on Set documentary, Alexa was going on like a bit of a press tour to various places. I would say that I'm using past tense, but I wouldn't say that that has like finished yet. I already mentioned in my first video, she went on Megyn Kelly's Sirius XM show, which I think signs point to grift regarding willingly being on that lady's platform. But something else that happened was one of two pieces of recent Twitter backlash that I have noticed Alexa having since I finished editing my last video. I don't even know that backlash is necessarily the right word for this. We're going to talk a little bit about Trisha Paytas. Now, I'm not like a huge Trish fan. I'm also not a Trish hater. I don't have a lot of information about Trish. I haven't done like a big deep dive. When I was hyperfixating on the whole Colleen Ballinger thing last summer, along with everybody else who watched commentary YouTube, I watched some like reactions to Trisha's podcast. And I remember at that point being like surprised and impressed that she seemed to be doing pretty well. I think she seems to be doing pretty well. I could be wrong about that. But a lot of people did not want Alexa to go on this podcast for, kind of similar reasons as to why people didn't want Corey Feldman on the Christy Carlson Romano podcast. See, I told you had to watch the first video. And despite the fact that she had tweeted like, oh, we're trying to get in touch about this, thoughts when Trisha publicly invited her onto the podcast, she really didn't listen to any of the many, many, many responses that asked her not to go on the podcast. I can kind of see the argument that if you see Eat Predators as less than just a celebrity drama channel, that maybe you would be confused why they would go on the podcast, as well as the argument that, maybe some of Trisha Paytas's past behavior should preclude her from being somebody that Alexa wants to associate with. I'm not digging into any like deep history there, but I'm also not dismissing real harm that has been felt by communities that Trisha Paytas has kind of been fascinated by for periods of time. Again, though, she seems to be doing better as of late, and even just if for the sake of having more information to give you guys in this video, I really can't fault Alexa for going on the Just Trish podcast. It was kind of, I don't know. I think it was a little bit clueless to ask what people thought if she knew she was just going to do it anyway. I don't know if she didn't know that Trish was controversial, or maybe Alexa did like the fact that it would be controversial because she was already getting backlash for T-shirts. Something we're going to get to. Or what? I think I've seen discussion, even in the Eat Predators subreddit, saying that they would have wanted Alexa to call out Ethan from H3. But Alexa was on the H3 podcast at one point this summer. She and her husband have incorporated like annoying little sound bites into their show like H3 does. I think Alexa likes being able to pander to any audience at all, which is why you see her on both H3 and Just Trish. I also am not super knowledgeable about H3 and Trisha Paytas. I did watch the Nicole Raffi online girl explains video about it, which I will link in the description below, and you should check out, but isn't like 100% relevant here. Anyway, whatever people thought of it, Alexa went on the Just Trish podcast, and that is what we're going to be discussing next. But before we do, again, that other Twitter controversy, the T-shirts. So, following the popularity of the Quiet on Set documentary, which Alexa has previously praised and been super excited about the amount of viewers and eyes on it that it has gotten since its release, Alexa put out a new push of merchandise in the Eat Predators store. You watched my first video. You know how I feel about the whole activism thing. You know I don't like this weirdly sexualized mouth logo. I especially don't like it when it's like sexy mouth and also splat and also reference to Children's Network where people have been abused. I think the optics on this are not good. I don't think the optics on most of Eat Predators activism is good, but like this shirt, even more than like the Eat Predators Academy Zoe 101 shirt, struck a nerve not just with me, but also with other random Twitter users. I posted one in my community post the day after I uploaded my original Alexa video because somebody else had retweeted Alexa's merch announcement for this Eat Predators Nickelodeon t-shirt. And they said, I think very kindly, that Alexa had a very weird spirit, which I won't dismiss as like a pretty devastating insult, but you know, it's true and it's also not a hateful thing to say. And pretty much was mostly what I was seeing people say about these shirts, like that they were weird and that it seemed strange that people would want to wear a shirt that has the logo and, you know, it's selling merch about child abuse. And is it maybe weird that Eat Predators isn't a non-profit? You know, maybe is it weird that Alexa isn't saying that she's sharing the proceeds from this with other Nickelodeon stars who were in that documentary? People were really kind of coming at that one in a way that they haven't previously responded to her merchandise. The same way that I think attaching the conspiracy theory video played Drake's hand. I think these shirts, more than anything else Alexa could have done following the momentum of Quiet on Set, really tipped her hand. Because I had already referred to her merch as like a penance tax that she is offering to her fans, to people who feel bad that she has had to suffer and also was in a television show on a network that they enjoyed when they were kids. You know, it's a $40 guilt tax. Who's wearing this? Who would want to wear this outside of the house? What would you think of somebody that you saw on the street wearing a shirt that had like a big sexy mouth lapping up the Nickelodeon slime? Would that make you feel empowered if you were one of the other victims who wasn't lining their pockets to $45 a piece with a print-on-demand shirt? I don't think it would. And I kept seeing on Twitter people trying to defend her and being like, well, that's like saying that nobody can make a Me Too shirt. And it's like, no, I think almost any feminist organization trying to sell a Me Too shirt without giving some portion of the revenue to survivors of sexual assault would be criticized. But Alexa has herself wrapped up in all of this armor because everybody is so afraid that what they're actually asking is for her to be a perfect victim. But they're not. It's not perfect victim behavior to be responsible. There's no such thing as a perfect victim is for when somebody who has been suffering domestic abuse swings back on their abuser. It's not for making blatantly cash grab merch shirts and then, I'm not kidding, claiming that everybody who criticized you for it is a bot campaign. To get to the whole bot campaign thing, we have to be in the Just Trish podcast moment, so we'll circle back. But she did also say that she was surprised to have been attacked by this, and then we saw a change. And it wasn't the first time that I noticed this slight change in how she was talking about the Quiet on Set documentary. I actually noticed the first change after the new episode that's supposed to release actually tonight, the night of me recording this, was announced. She talked about it in a live, and she had something to say that did, you know, call a particular Victoria Justice meme to mind.
Were my feelings hurt a little bit? Yes. Just because I would have liked to have been invited into the conversation, just because I've been talking about it for so long. And I thought it would have been nice to have everybody who was part of the documentary, you know, invited. I'm not just saying me, I'm saying literally every single person who was a part of that documentary, who spent hours, you know, reliving those experiences to tell the world. I think everyone deserved a seat at that table. And it was sad. It was sad. And though at the same time, this is awesome, right? And so I'm so grateful for this documentary. And at the same time, that was a little bit sad because I think all of us should be included.
Like, especially during rehearsal. All sing. Yeah,
So fast forward to her getting, I think, well-deserved backlash for this particular round of ugly shirts. And she says, go ask Discovery and HBO how much they profited off of us because we didn't even get paid for the documentary. And in a vacuum, like many of Alexa's statements, that seems really compelling. Like, oh, damn, they probably did make a lot of money off of Quiet on Set, and I'm sure that they did. However, not only would Alexa have known when she sat down for that documentary, I'm sure that she wasn't getting paid. It's also a pretty reasonable assumption that the sources in that and most documentary did not get paid because, like, if you as a producer are giving people money to tell you stories, they're incentivized to tell you a more wild story and get more screen time and more money. It's not ideal. People should get paid to share their stories, but that's why it's better to come forward with your story in, like, a memoir, like Jeanette McCurdy did, for example. So this bait and switch to me, and maybe just only to me, definitely felt reactionary to having first maybe not gotten quite as big of a part in the documentary as she was expecting. I know she has mentioned that her mother recorded interviews and those were not in the interviews portion of the documentary. The documentary is not good. I think they had a lot of different places that they were assembling things together from, and they must have skipped over Alexa's mom so that they could use that one guy who didn't even know what he was sitting down for and then left in the middle of it. Again, not a good documentary, but not because they didn't pay the people who sat down to tell their stories for free. Right, like, are we on the same page there? Also, any level of, like, profiting off of a documentary that comes is very different from essentially selling a shirt that says, I feel bad that former child actors got abused and all I got was this lousy t-shirt, right? It's something that everybody who was involved in it understood and agreed to ahead of time. And I mean, I highly doubt that everybody who was involved in this documentary signed off on these tacky Nickelodeon shirts. She kind of implied that everybody knew and was cool with it, but I kind of think that it's more likely that that meant none of the other people in the documentary told me it was weird, and that's probably because of how hard it is to point out when Alexa is being weird. Again, a very intentional piece of her brand. So following that backlash and before the Just Trish podcast dropped, Alexa declared that she was moving from Twitter, X, to Threads and Instagram because X is toxic. And that's as far as I have updates on the Twitter thing for now. So yeah, bot campaigns and the Just Trish podcast. So she's talking about all of this Twitter backlash that she was receiving, which again, I think was pretty mild comparatively and, like, has been a long time coming. It was the kind of thing that I was feeling in my gut was about to come when I was trying to finish the first video, right? But there's a very particular way that she talks about this, and she uses it to kind of bring in language that she's used when she's talked about other cases, when she's talked about things that she knows people are on her side with, like, you know, Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. She talks about social media manipulation and bot farms. In my initial deep dive about Eat Predators, we talked about Alexa's smear campaign against the other activists and some of the women who had started the Eat Predators movement with her, right? We talked about those big Guess Who streams. We talked about framing the fact that they had all worked with the same lawyer together as if somebody was saying a man got full credit for the advocacy of Eat Predators. We know Alexa tells us that her critics are saying different things than they're really saying. But this is an evolution of that, because now she's telling us that her critics aren't real people. She's saying that if you go and look at the accounts that were tweeting about the shirts not being in good taste, they were just retweet accounts, and that's not true. Or at least not to the way that she understands what a retweet account is, because, like, I have no skin in this game. I gained a handful of people who enjoy hearing how I think about things by covering this, but like I'm not making money. I didn't get money to retweet posts about that shirt. I retweeted them the way most people retweet them and most posts. I liked the post. I thought that it phrased things in a way I liked. I reposted it. My Twitter account hasn't been active very often in the last few years. I just started going back on it more often since I'm like doing this video thing now. You can follow me if you want. It's Ophi Dokes because somebody else is Ophi Doki over there, I guess. Anyway, I'm sure that maybe there are accounts that are just burner accounts that are run by people who hate her. I'm in fact sure of it, but I'm sure of it to the tune of like 3 accounts. And the way that she presents it in the Just Trish podcast is as if it's to the tune of hundreds and hundreds. Don't worry, no matter how nuanced and gentle and well put your critique of Alexa is, she'll just tell her fans that you're a bot. And the thing is, I don't even think that there are no bot campaigns present in all of this. Drake Bell is shilling cryptocurrency. I already told you that. Like, I am not going to be surprised if it comes out after the fact, the way that it did with Johnny Depp, that this is a bot farm thing, that he is paying to manipulate public interest in his rehabilitation. I do believe a lot of people have genuinely fallen for it, but I think a lot of people genuinely fell for the Johnny Depp thing too, which is kind of like the most embarrassing thing about those bot farms is some people do it for free. But like, this is not a bot farm. Criticizing these shirts as being tacky is not a concentrated effort by some hater trying to take you down. It's largely people like me and people like the people who have been talking to me in the comments of my first video about this. Like, people who have supported the movement who just have some concerns. And increasingly those concerns are just laughed at. I mean, look at the way that she sells this here.
Well,
But it's like, why?
Like recently, what happened with that T-shirt thing, for example? I
Yeah.
like looked at them, these are all retweet accounts. These are bot bounties. So people can do. I did a whole episode about this. So basically, there's these not WhatsApp, but whatever that other app is where you can like have group chats. I forget what it's called with a T. Telegram, thank you. Yeah, you know. Okay,
He knows.
Telegram. Yeah, there's these NFT bounties that you can do, and you basically give people cryptos to go and attack an account.
Oh.
And so you can usually tell when someone's doing that
Yeah.
by just going and looking at what accounts are saying it.
Okay.
And they'll usually be retweet accounts where they only have like 15 followers and they're just retweeting things. Like they're paid crypto to boost like NFT
okay.
things. And so I did this whole uncovering of that like months ago because John Vaccaro, who's Dan Schneider's best friend, does shit like that to me.
I don't know if she genuinely believes that it's bots or if this is just a good excuse and a good way to like shut down criticism, because it seems like it is. And people who are only kind of paying attention to these things are going to be like, oh man, that sounds right. I love Alexa and I hate bot farms like the one Johnny Depp had. Right? You see it.
I
So
looked at it and I was like,
interesting.
what is this?
Oh.
And then you're like, at first, you're like, what the hell is this? And then you look at them and you're like, like, I just knew, like, you know, yesterday I was like, oh, okay, I know what this is. And that's what also you have to go through when you're doing these things.
Yeah.
People that have like random money to throw down can literally hire accounts to just trash you.
Damn you, yeah.
This is not the only like thing in this podcast that strikes me as disingenuous, but I did mention Victoria Justice earlier and the I think we all sing. To be clear, I will hear no Victoria Justice slander. I think we all sing was her trying to like make people feel a little bit less awkward during an awkward icebreaker where for a musical show they were saying the fun thing about them is they sing. Like, I think joking about I think we all sing is very funny, but I don't think that she meant it in a malicious I am the star now way. And you know who has mentioned it after the fact as if that's how Victoria Justice meant it? Alexa. Not here on another podcast, but then she brings up Alexa here with Trish. I glossed over a lot of the mentions of the bullying on the set of Zoe 101 in my first video. It's like I knew she was going to talk about it again here because we get to talk about it with the Just Trish video. Again, I don't feel like this is to the same par as things that are described in the case of, like, the amount of access that Drake Bell's Predator had to him. Other things that are said about what happened on the set of Dan Schneider shows as far as him being emotionally abusive and racist and terrible. This doesn't sound pleasant. I was a lonely child. I would have not responded well to not being able to ingratiate into a group of teens once I finally thought I had a chance. But it feels odd to platform with the same kind of solemnness as you're platforming your, like, sincere trauma. I mean, I don't say that to minimize the harm that's done by being a lonely kid, but it feels like with most of Alexa's targets for her grudge campaigns, just a little bit misplaced. Especially when it comes to Victoria Justice, whose biggest sin is, like, having also become friends with Jamie Lynn and then being friends with Alexa less. But, like, there's not talk of Victoria Justice actively bullying her the way that she talks about other girls on the set of Zoe 101 bullying her. So it just feels weird to try to, like, bring her up to drag her down when there's, like, just so much else to talk about. It's weird. It's gossip channel behavior, I think, is what it is. Like, it's not something that she's not allowed to talk about at all, but it's also something why I'm not sure why I should care about it, and something that I don't really care about. I just can't. And then that's being held up as if it's on the same scale as a lot of the other trauma that has been experienced at Nickelodeon, trauma that was talked about in the documentary. And I think there's kind of this is difficult to say without feeling like I am accusing Alexa of overstating things, but I feel like there is a benefit in the discourse to have people assume that the thing that you have come forward about is as bad as the worst things other people have come forward about. And this, like, conflation of, you know, on-set politics and teenage girls acting like teenage girls with, like, real tangible systemic harm feels misguided, and it feels misguided in a way that makes me lose my faith in the leader of this organization. It also kind of felt like Trisha was trying to get Alexa to talk about Drake Bell. You can judge for yourself there, but she kept kind of bringing the same thing up over and over again, and it felt like either Alexa fully dodged it or maybe something got cut out.
Yeah, you kind of feel bad, but yeah, the cycle can either be repeated, which we've seen obviously other Nickelodeon stars.
We've
repeating
seen
it.
cycle. Yeah, I mean, and it's so when you because it's childhood trauma too. You're like, my lord, like,
are you like stunted? Like, did you ever feel stunted at that age, like
you
the
know,
age of your
I
trauma?
think there maybe there was a little bit of that, but I had really, my mom was like, just even when she had to go to Florida. And, you know, obviously I made this decision to stay back. My mom was just always been so like loving. Mm-hmm. And I've always had my mom.
Although it does seem like it was only the allegations against Drake Bell that Alexa was hesitant to talk about. They did talk about Drake Bell and his victimization by Brian Peck.
The best thing they could have done was actually support us through therapy.
Yeah.
Like, I think every person that worked for Nickelodeon that has come forward and said, I have experienced deep trauma from this.
Yeah.
And because you don't pay us residuals, I can't get the help that I deserve to guide me through this trauma. Nickelodeon, I think, should be paying for their therapy.
For sure.
Especially when we hear Drake Bell's story. You're like, at the very least,
yes,
they're him. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Him.
Yeah.
Like, you know, go over there and
post-care.
Yes.
because then it just, as a cycle, you know, all this stuff of being, you know, friends with minors, it's like maybe he's stunted. That's the only thing I could think of. I'm like, okay, maybe he wants to be friends with people that are young because he feels like he's still at 15 or 14 when he got abused. I don't know. I know it's like, I try to understand it because, you know, being a victim of it, you're just like, okay, maybe there's some stunted growth where he still feels like a young mind or something. I don't know.
This is what also makes me a little bit annoyed. Because Nickelodeon hasn't paid us, that now a lot of people are forced into like curating their careers around the nostalgia. And I think that's dangerous because you're supposed to be able to move on after you've done like a project, especially when it has to do with children.
Right.
Because the whole point is like, the only people you should be even having book signings with are the people that watched you when you were younger. But Nickelodeon airs this shit all day, getting new children to be fans of people that are now 40 years old. And you're like, what are we doing here? It's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's fine to have like young fans. I think it's just like, don't become friends with fans.
Don't zoom them.
That's what it is. And social media makes it seem like you're so close. And so now this girl, you know, they make it seem like they're close. And it's just like, okay, so you just
like, don't go anywhere near minors when you're older.
Okay,
like,
you
know what I mean?
So we agree on that. I was just like,
what? Like, don't do that because it's too, even if you're doing it in this fan professional setting, it's just why.
I agree. Yeah. It's just like, or just befriending any fans.
I just want my children, like, it's my children I want to be around.
Right.
I'm not really, you know what I mean? I get messages from fans all the time that you see their little, like, you know, thing and you're like, oh, they're young. I don't even open those.
Yeah.
Again, her audience did not want her to go on this podcast. I saw some backlash to it on the Eat Predators subreddit. I saw tweets about it. I think, though, for some reasons that, you know, you probably already can gather and that we're going to be talking about for a little bit longer after this, though, you know, Trisha and the Just Trish podcast is, like, I think a pretty decent drama podcast. From what I watched on this one episode, again, I haven't really watched it, but, like, the same point that I kept making when I was saying Christy Carlson Romano could just do a Drew Barrymore, like, if Alexa was just only trying to do a Just Trish, I think I would care less. It's this thing where even saying maybe these shirts are weird is construed as attacking her and attacking a whole movement, and it's like, that's just not what the issue is here. And you're saying everybody who has an issue with you is either having a completely different issue than what they're presenting, or that they don't exist. I think, you know, you could watch this if you wanted to. You could also skip all of the parts where she's just bad-mouthing her former co-stars for no reason. But more on bad-mouthing the former co-stars for no reason shortly. Because before we get to that, I wanted to also mention beef that didn't make the beef list in the first video because it was like almost nothing, but it just still rattles around in my head concerning her recent behavior and especially the shirt. Alexa attempted to like publicly shame Matt Bennett, the kid from Victorious with the puppet. He does like DJ things now. He does like a Party 101 thing where he plays Nickelodeon specific music and has like a party. It's all centered around like this speech that he has about how working for Nickelodeon as a child star impacted him. There's actually a really cool section about it in one of the intermissions of one of the Quentin Reviews videos. I will link that one down in the description below once I remember which one it happens in. Matt Bennett is a former Nickelodeon star who is like offering something of his own to the audience. I don't have a problem with it. I don't know anything about this kid that would make me have an issue with him doing that. I hope Nick doesn't get any money from this, and I think they don't. I think it's like carefully branded enough that he wouldn't have to. And his statement, though Alexa posted it in a way that made it look like it was not good enough, was fine, I thought. He stood in solidarity with the victims and said that his parties were like a reclaiming of the thing. this was, I think, actually one of the first times that I did see a handful of people saying, like, oh no, weird vibes from Alexa, but it's not, like, fully formed enough that it made it into the first video. And we're going to be talking about a different Matthew later who was on the Zoe 101 cast, but I just wanted to mention that, like, Matt Bennett thing, because again, it just feels hypocritical. If it were one or two little things that were a little bit hypocritical, I think a lot of us would still have a lot more tolerance left, and we just don't. And speaking of hypocritical, like this framing as if she never ever speaks directly to her members. Again, the Eat Predators Discord existed until very recently, and you can find a link in the description below to a petition that was made by somebody who has spent time in that Discord and has more stories about the dysfunction there. But just suffice it to say that the whole, like, do not talk directly to your audience thing, that's ahistorical for her to pretend like has always been the case for her and Eat Predators. And, you know, even if you watch a stream, kind of seems untrue. But I'm truly not trying to fact check this entire episode of the Just Trish podcast. So let's move on, shall we? So like I said, Matthew Underwood was a cast member on Zoe 101 and a villain of the week, if you will, for Eat Predators of a few months ago. This is a series of streams that I watched while I was still a fan of Alexa Nikolas, but that I felt a little strangely about at the time. So as I said, Matthew Underwood was a cast member of Alexa's on Zoe 101. He played one of the boys, I think Logan? Essentially, Alexa got her hands on email correspondence between a fan of hers and Zoe 101's who had, like, gotten a long novel-length email response from this Matthew Underwood guy when they wrote a letter asking him, like, what his take is on Dan Schneider being abusive. I'm not caping for Matthew Underwood. I think he's wrong. He says that he doesn't think that Dan Schneider shows are creepy or more sexualized. He says he thinks Disney is more sexualized, which I just think is objectively untrue. But the level of nuance that Alexa has had, this endless grace for the fact that Drake didn't say anything bad at all about Dan in the documentary, it's just nowhere to be seen when it comes to Matthew Underwood, who, you know, I don't know what the context of the email as she received it from the fan of hers is, but I do know that as of when she recorded it and reacted to it and mocked it to her fans on the live stream, there was a big redacted portion of this email. Whatever Matthew had been saying to this fan was censored out, either, you know, possibly before Alexa got it, but also possibly after Alexa got it, but because she knew something wasn't hers to come forward with. Because in the context clues that we have after the fact, because ever since the release of Quiet on Set, Matthew Underwood came forward, not just like in an email to a fan, but, you know, he made a public statement on his Instagram. In this Instagram statement, he tried to kind of play both sides, like he was supporting the victims who had spoken out and also still kind of downplaying, you know, that he really didn't personally think that Dan Schneider was that bad. But in this statement, he also said that he himself had been a victim of child sexual abuse and that it's part of why he left acting. I mentioned the redacted portion of the email that Alexa was mocking because it is immediately before a sentence that begins with something like, "So I would never disbelieve anybody else's allegations." But genuinely, like, that might have been blacked out before Alexa got it. I just kind of feel like a fan who felt like they were feeding information to Alexa maybe wouldn't have blocked that out. So maybe this was something that she already knew about, and if that's the case, the choice to make content out of his email months ago and also to immediately turn around and make content out of his Instagram statement is just challenging to me. And making content is exactly what she's doing out of these statements that keep coming forward after the release of Quiet on Set. Pretty much if anybody makes a statement in a newspaper or a TikTok video on their own platform, an Instagram post, Alexa will make a video out of it, and she probably will, make a little clickbait thumbnail to make it look like she's interviewing people so that you click on it. I didn't mention that in my first video. I was being nicer then, but it is scummy clickbait that I'm not the only person who has a problem with. These thumbnails are intentionally designed to be misleading, and to some extent you can just say that's the name of the game on YouTube, which is why I didn't mention it the first time. But if I'm just laying it all out there, I'm going to lay it all out there. I don't like the thumbnails. I think they're scummy. But she made another video with another scummy little headline and thumbnail and reported on this guy's trauma as well. And I just think that's weird. I think it's weird. I think, probably there are lots of other YouTubers who also do that kind of thing that I think is weird. I don't like how gleeful Sloan is about having information to spread, especially when I know that he shares things that I consider to be misinformation or not properly qualified information from sources as if it's given. This is issues that I would have with any drama channel. I just have it more with Alexa because she is pretending to be so much more. Matthew Underwood is saying that he was getting death threats and stuff because he had previously written an email that leaked that was in support of Dan Schneider to whatever extent. And again, I didn't like the way that he came across in those emails, but it wasn't to the same level of actual predator that the Alexa Nikolas Exposes videos were originally supposed to be, right? It was once again a grudge, and specifically a former coworker grudge. This is petty beef, and it's petty beef that she's using somebody's actual trauma to fuel. He said that this is a level of trauma that made him quit acting and leave Hollywood, and she was traumatized with Zoe 101, but she did continue to act for a while afterwards. She had a negative experience on set with her castmates. It's not equitable to the kind of trauma that happens when you are sexually assaulted. And again, in terms of conflating amounts of harm that is done to her and to other people on Nickelodeon sets, let's talk about another couple of video reactions that have happened since my deep dive.
Well, it seems like, though, Angelique Bates didn't feel good about what Kenan Thompson said. She tweeted, "What about what you did witness? Remember me?" I didn't actually know much about Angelique Bates, but I would hear about her here and there when I started coming forward about Dan Schneider and about Nickelodeon. And she's honestly the first person, pretty positive, to speak out against the network and about the producers. And I mean, she's honestly a badass. And no one listened to her. I'm actually kind of curious why she's not in the doc. Let's watch this video. This was, I think, when she first came forward, but I'm not sure. Let's just watch it.
So Angelique Bates was a cast member on All That, and she came forward and shared her experience of abuse at the hands of Nickelodeon. Unlike what Alexa describes, which again, in Alexa's case, was bullying amongst her peers, her other fellow actors and teens on the set, Angelique was abused and yelled at. I mean, to the extent that she says, even sometimes they could hear me yelling. The most dramatic story that we had gotten about Alexa's experience on Zoe 101 was Britney Spears yelling at her after the fact. That's another story that she told on the Just Trish podcast. You can hear about it there. Britney Spears came to visit right before they finished filming season 2 and had heard rumors from Jamie Lynn that Alexa had been bullying her and yelled at her. That's not a systemic thing that's happening from the producers. The most unkind things that she has said about the producers is either that Dan said it's not called Nicole 101, it's Zoe 101, and that when she was crying and essentially having a panic attack over having been screamed at by Britney Spears, he gave her the wrap present early for their final day of filming season 2 and was like, "Here, does this make you feel better?" Again, not a good workplace, not somewhere I'm advocating children should be, but think of that while you listen to what Angelique describes in this video that Alexa responds to. Think of, especially given, the context of the documentary, the kind of differences in severity of some of the things that some of the children who were people of color were describing compared to their white counterparts. I'm not advocating that it is not hard for the white child star, but I am saying that the amount of just immediate recentering that Alexa does onto this narrative being about herself genuinely startled me. It is immediate.
From 1992 to 1996, I was a series regular on Nickelodeon's All That. I was only 12 years old, and that's when my nightmare began. I was physically, mentally, emotionally in front of the producers and cast members, and sometimes they could even hear me yelling. But nothing was done to help me until approximately 1996 when CPS was called. And when CPS came, I was pressured by all the adults that were set to protect me to stay silent. I did, and I have. But I can no longer stay silent, and I won't. My name is Angelique Bates, and I am an adult survivor of child and this is my story.
Wow. I think maybe her and I have similar experiences when it comes to, I think, bullying on set. It was them calling me crazy and this and that I was making things up and, a whole bunch of things. And it was really painful. And so if she's saying that he did witness a toxic work environment in any way when it came to her, she's feeling like, oh, why aren't you acknowledging, though, what I remember you seeing for yourself? So I feel for her if that is how she feels and he did witness some things and he's not stating that. I get how she's feeling. Like, I feel for her. I really, really do.
The story that Angelique tells has producers being able to hear her yelling from being abused. It has CPS being called, which isn't a part of Alexa's story. And Alexa's immediate response is, oh my God, that sounds just like what happened to me. And again, I did give grace for this earlier. When it's something that's helpful, like relating your experience having been groomed to somebody else being groomed, it can be really helpful. But when it's you relating your experience as a white person to something that is pretty clearly at least partially racially motivated, that an actor of color who was your counterpart had to go through, it looks bad. This is even one of the few things that, like, if she had handled it respectfully, I probably wouldn't have cared so much about her putting somebody else's statement on her channel as content fodder. If she had handled it in a way that wasn't just to immediately redirect it onto herself, but that's what she does, right? Again, I understand empathizing to a certain point with this, but it just was an immediate recentering around Alexa that I feel proves the point that I have been making to you for an hour now, and hours before that in my first video, right? Eat Predators is not about justice for all survivors. It is for justice for the survivors who remind Alexa of her own struggles and who didn't make Alexa angry most recently. Justice for Drake Bell and not for Corey Feldman. Justice for Alexa and not for, the other survivors who she organized with who didn't have Nickelodeon backgrounds and got left behind as Eat Predators began to focus only on Nickelodeon. I think Alexa throwing her weight behind Angelique's story could have been really great, but instead it was just a recentering. That's not weight throwing. It's not activism. It's the evidence of everything that I was saying at the end of my last video of why apology activism is not activism. Because Angelique isn't crusading for a specific apology. Angelique is talking about her experiences as being oppressed in the workplace, especially as it pertains to racial discrimination that she faced specifically as a Black woman, a Black child, but, a Black girl. No understanding of misogyny is complete without an understanding of misogynoir and the way that, young Black girls are forced into adulthood so much sooner than other girls are. The way that even unconscious racial biases play out. I mean, something I hadn't even thought about because I used to really like Good Burger is like even Dan putting the kids that he did in that specific set is a little bit sus. I'm not saying that Good Burger itself as a concept is racist, but, you know, like, what is the implication of this racist white guy casting the kids that he did in that sketch to play the characters that they did, right? And while there was stuff happening on Zoe 101, while there was, you know, sexualization of minors that was really starting to take off in Dan Schneider shows around that time, it just isn't the same as, like, somebody coming forward with her experience as a Black woman. And there's really not any nuance for that. There's no mention of the fact that her race must have made it harder on her. Alexa uses it instead to kind of leverage herself and Angelique as if they're at the same amount of privilege, an amount of privilege that nobody else would feel sorry for them about. And that's not true. And, you know, that's just patently not true. People clearly feel very sorry for Alexa. And honestly, probably they feel more sorry for Alexa than they do for Angelique, because Alexa is like a conventionally attractive white woman. I say that as a white woman. Like, I understand that me saying these things gets a different reaction than other people saying the same things might. That's an unfortunate reality that you just have to understand as a feminist and as an activist. Privilege is not only something that you have to work against to be taken seriously, which seems to be the only time that it really matters to Alexa, it's something that you have to understand how you wield when you platform other people. And that's, like a lot of other foundational aspects of feminism and activism, just not something that I see in Alexa. So to that point, Matthew Underwood saying that he was receiving death threats because of the Eat Predators coverage about him. Again, Alexa addressed the community again recently, and amongst saying that she doesn't support people going onto their own platform to say things about minor texter Drake Bell, she also was like, I don't support anybody giving death threats or anything. And the thing is, like, you can say that all day long, but when you are kind of eliciting certain emotional responses from your audience on purpose, like, while I sometimes, you know, will kind of laugh to myself when I'm watching a YouTube video and somebody will be like, just because I talked about this person doesn't mean you should go bother them. Because, you know, I've assumed with the way that I've been talking about Alexa, you know, I don't want anybody who watches this video to harass Alexa. I don't think if you watched this far, you are going to use the information that I've given you to attack Alexa, because we've been just chatting, just talking about things in a nuanced way. When your whole deal, though, is, you know, sorting people into predators and victims, survivors, predators and survivors, you are telling those survivors, like, hey, here's a punching bag if you want it. And, you know, to an extent, that first Drake Bell video that we watched of hers was her offering a punching bag to survivors. But it's like a punching bag that I agree with offering to survivors, because it's somebody who has said that he did the thing that we're talking about him doing. Offering up Matthew Underwood as a punching bag to survivors for the great sin of telling somebody in an email that he doesn't personally find Dan Schneider to be abusive and creepy. Again, I don't agree with most of what was in Matthew Underwood's letter, but I do agree with him on certain things, like that Alexa is very interested in courting conspiracy theorists, that she seems like somebody who would get swept up into QAnon. Like, the same way that I felt sympathy for Lindsay saying Alexa is spouting off into the universe, like, I probably wouldn't outright say I think Alexa is conspiracy brained and might fall into QAnon stuff, but I've said similar. You watched my first video. You know that I said that I think that she is courting conspiracy theorists, that I think that the way that she talks about Epstein in the same breath as she talks about Nickelodeon or experiencing bullying at the hands of other people on the Zoe 101 set, I don't personally blame Matthew Underwood for saying that he felt like Alexa was like conspiracy brained, but obviously that was a huge insult to Alexa, and one that she needed to tell all of her many, many fans how horrible Matthew was for. Even though this email wasn't to him, like, if she was exposing an email that had been written to her, which is what I thought was the case at first, I would feel a little differently about it. But especially this, like, it doesn't make sense. If she was reading an email correspondence that somebody had leaked to her that was like from their direct predator and abuser, you know, like that even still might be kind of in terms of just like legally whatever, but like morally fine, whatever. But Matthew Underwood was being punished like he was an agitator, like he was an abuser, because he just wasn't correctly on Alexa's side the way she needs everyone to be at all times. Now, I've already told you some about the Guess Who streams that happened when the original leaders of Eat Predators were kind of chased out by Alexa. There was an additional Guess Who stream on Eat Predators, but it's not one that I had watched when I was researching that first video. It's a video that's primarily around things that happened in the Discord, and it's titled red exclamation mark emoji, survivors listening group canceled. And the screenshot is like a person, like a person's face, because she's using somebody's name again. She's like doxing people again. And I mean, I think that the doxing of Kay Brown and Kaylee Higgins and Autumn Whitaker all were bad, but this doxing with this person who was running the survivors listening group is just, oh my God. Like, I was watching this, and you can see her react a few times because she'll get like a really big super chat donation, because while she is tear jerking about how sad she is, people feel bad for her and give her money. They do that whether or not she's offering them ugly t-shirts. So while she is framing like just the very existence of a group chat between her Discord moderators that she wasn't in, which she keeps saying that she didn't understand Discord, she didn't know how to use Discord, she brought people in to use Discord, and then she was very, very frustrated that other people were like using Discord. I'm not going to say that nothing that was said in these messages that she leaked in this stream was mean. Like some of it was like some of it was just talking about somebody behind their back. But importantly here, Alexa, I think, loses all moral high ground on lecturing about not talking about people behind their back when she's like repeatedly, and not even for the first time, sharing screenshots explicitly just to make somebody else look bad to her huge audience. A huge audience that she has kind of commandeered away from the other people who were doing things like originally running the social media that Eat Predators now uses. You know? Like, you can feel bad that somebody said that it looks like you don't wash your hands and you smell bad, but like you are still talking about them by the time you're like trying to air out their mental health diagnoses to your viewers to make them look more like erratic and unhinged so that you are more sympathetic to them. And some of the things that she skips over, dude, in these videos, like she like scrolls really, really fast through one. So I paused, and the messages from the people that she is trying to publicly humiliate are saying things like, I'm afraid of her because of the way she retaliates against people. But that doesn't fit the narrative. Not the way that trying to frame this person as if they're a thief would. Not the way that framing the "you're a leftist, name everybody who left you" meme as a gun threat would, right? So this like stream about this survivors group chat, other than just being another hour and a half of Alexa Nikolas feeling terrible for herself, which is what Eat Predators Daily is like highly irresponsible. Because I know from my comment section, I actually was reached out to by the person who was being doxxed in this video. Their name was not previously associated with like accusations that they have made against their abuser. This wasn't somebody who was also in like high-ranking positions of other nonprofits, the way that we saw maybe with some of the original people in the Guess Who streams. Like, this is a person who was running the survivor listening group Discord because Alexa didn't want to learn how to make Discord, and who just like, I mean, again, I'm not saying that nothing that Alexa saw about herself in screenshots after the fact should have hurt her feelings or even necessarily kept her from wanting to remove people from her Discord or whatever space she thought she was moderating. Although, again, as we established very well in the first video, she wasn't doing a lot of the actual moderation. Like, Eat Predators is the Alexa Nikolas fan club. Are we all kind of on the same page about that? Like, that's what this is. So she was using the Alexa Nikolas fan club to basically rile up against this person who used to be part of the Alexa Nikolas fan club and who used to do a lot of free labor for her. And I think that's fucked. The thing, though, that makes all of this the absolute most fucked, like, we know how hard Alexa has been riding that, like, everybody on the planet owes Drake Bell a personal private apology. Everybody who she is exposing in this video has already apologized to her. She reads the apology from this survivor to say, and they apologized, but I don't forgive them. And I will let you guys know when I forgive them, but I just needed to let everybody know what's going on and how wonderful and perfect and flawless I am and how I have never done anything wrong. Thank you so much for the super chat. I got $100 for this. That's what that video is. It's an hour and a half of that. I am overwhelmed trying to imagine what it would feel like if I had gotten an hour and a half video just about me and how terrible I am after my first Alexa video. Again, like, some of the things that were said in these screenshots are further than I have gone in my videos or would go in my videos, but you just have to be an adult. Like, if you want to be a serious feminist activist, if you want to be taken seriously, you need to be an adult. Once somebody has come to you and said, I'm sorry, I don't mean the things that I said, I wish I hadn't said them, somebody manipulated me into saying them, and I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Using that for content while you are still actively accusing somebody of having stolen money from you, I really, really do not respect. And you can kind of watch my, like, evolution of lack of respect for what Alexa is doing over the course of these videos, right? In my Drake Bell one, I was saying I had a lot of respect for Alexa. I still really admired what she was doing. I do not admire this. Anything else that Eat Predators does in the future is so goddamn tainted by these tacky-ass Guess Who streams that were made specifically because Alexa is a bully who wants to use her platform to gather revenge. It ruins everything else that Eat Predators possibly could do, stand for, or accomplish. It makes them look foolish. It makes this look like high school shit. Even some of the comments, even some of the people in the Reddit were saying, this is high school shit. You know, maybe that's what Trisha was getting at about people getting stunted or whatever, but, like, this is high school shit. It is not activism. It is not the way that you treat people. Especially, again, it's not the way that you treat people who have apologized to you. People who have apologized to you, who have previously said in screenshots that you are using in your video that they are terrified of you because of how you retaliate against people. And then you retaliate. And you leave those streams up for, you know, forever. Everyone can just go watch that. I got to go watch that this morning, knowing that it was full of lies about someone, and she doesn't care. She cares about taking down the old Drake Bell video so she can make sure she has full information about that. But once she has the exact amount of information she thinks she needs so that she is the victim and everybody is angry at the person she hates, that's all set. That's all you need. So this was both the survivors listening group canceled stream and an addressing the community stream from the next day. Again, like, if you read things from people who have experienced Alexa directly, they will tell you Eat Predators is not safe. It's not real. It's not doing what it says it's going to. I actually got to hear from another former founder of Eat Predators who was in my comment section on my first deep dive about this. And hi, thank you so much. You can read their comment if you go look at the pinned comments on that video. But they, I think, very astutely said that, you know, what Eat Predators is doing is turning activism into like a McDonald's novelty. I think that's very true. I think Alexa Nikolas's brand of activism is fast fashion. It's petty grudges. It's being a high school bully and pretending like you're actually the most principled person there. It's not activism. And a real activist would understand, even no matter how personally hurt they are, when acting on that hurt is going to make them look like somebody who cannot and should not be taken seriously. Again, I mean, I don't think that the survivor who had that stream made about them deserved to have that stream made about them. I don't think that this is a way that she should have handled anything. I also think, if more oversight were happening, if that Discord were actually moderated by the people who were originally going to moderate it when it was going to be a paid space, maybe things would have shaken out differently. And they didn't, because Alexa knows. She knows that she does not know what she's doing. She keeps saying that. She keeps hiding behind it. But the second that there's a screenshot of somebody saying Alexa doesn't know how to organize things, sad to say, she's like so mad about it. She has to go tell, at the time, 40,000 and now like 70,000 people about it to get them on her side. Like, I understand. I think we can all very deeply see a longing from Alexa to have people just unquestioningly take her side. We can see that in how she expects people to talk about her, how she wants to be thought of by people, how she wants other Nickelodeon stars to be thought of by people, how she talks about and defends Drake Bell. Like, this is all pretty clear already. She also is under the impression that she came up with power to survivors, and not that, clearly that's a spin on, power to the people, all power to all people. She wants credit for that, though, because she thinks that before that it was only ever believe survivors, and that believe survivors just gives people too much power over the survivors. So she thought that it would be so much more empowering if it was power to survivors. And it's like, Alexa, power to do what? Power to promote their shitty musical comeback career? Power to bully your friends? Power to send 50,000 people after somebody because you're telling them that they're trying to steal from survivors when you willingly promoted their fundraiser a couple of weeks earlier? That kind of power? That kind of power isn't helpful to anybody but Alexa. It's not power that can be wielded in a way that's actually helpful. It's power that can be wielded to create a cult of personality. And that's what she's doing. That's what she loves doing. That's why she plays clips of people cheering at her protests when she opens her show, because the protests aren't protests, they're pop-up fan club meetings about Alexa. All of this is a fan club for Alexa. And the moment that you step a single toe out of line, she might humiliate you in a Guess Who live stream, and she might be paid very handsomely to do that, just from super chats, not even from people who are already paying no matter what she's doing. People pay her extra money for this drama, so she comes up with extra drama. People give her extra money when she finds a way to spin the failings of her organization because of her lack of organizational skill, effort, dedication. They give her more money for that because she gets to say it like it's a horrible, mean thing somebody else is accusing her of. And by doing that, everybody else kind of builds up this defense measure around her of she knows she's not doing great. She knows she doesn't know how to run an organization, so it is fine for her to do anything she wants, hurt anybody that she wants, not go through any kind of training, not deal with having people who are accredited there to deal with survivors who she's all gathering into one place. Alexa can do whatever we want because it's mean to say otherwise, and we don't want to be mean to Alexa. We want to do exactly what Alexa said and give her all of the power. I'm done with that. She's had enough power. She does not wield it responsibly. Alexa is not a feminist. Alexa is not an activist. Alexa is a child star who still acts like a child. And as much as I will maintain all day long that I think that working for Nick as a child would be traumatic, I just think, maybe some things we see, she attended the Kids' Choice Awards and now has a story where she has been explicitly banned from attending the Kids' Choice Awards since she was quit, maybe fired from Zoe 101, another change that is just constant. Either she got fired because she spoke up about being bullied, or she asked to leave and had to be let out of her contract. Everything shifts based on just like what sounds the best that day in that context to align her with other things. As soon as you notice this, you will notice it the more you watch her talk about anything. Again, I don't think the fact that she lied about being banned from the Kids' Choice Awards on its own would be a smoking gun. I think a lot of these little things I would have just chalked up to not really remembering. But when so many other narratives have been so clearly bent to serve Alexa, it's really hard not to assume she's bending the other narratives too. And like I said, with having the same amount of like seriousness when she talks about her abuser or her stalker or somebody who used to run a listening support group for her for free, who she wasn't paying. Other people who used to protest with her and who she kind of knocked off of the movement as she continued to want more and more of the platform to be for her. You can find Sasha's comment on my most recent community post. And like I said, the other comment is pinned in the comment section of my first Alexa Nikolas video. You also can find a link to a change.org petition that has been started that has even more information about what it was like in the Discord. All of this very much is out there, and the only piece of it that I would suggest that you either don't listen to or listen to last are Alexa's bully streams. Because that's what they are. They're bullying. She is still very, very upset about having been bullied as a child, but she continues to bully like a child. At some point, you just have to expect that when you do that kind of thing, your audience is going to be going and giving death threats and being mean. You asked them to. You told them to be very, very protective of you. You thanked them for the hundreds of dollars of extra support that you got for crying. Of course they want to protect you. You asked them to. So I'd just like to see like a lot more responsibility and for her to only clickbait about people who are actually famous, because this is so legitimately dangerous when it's about normal, unfamous people. And even a lot of the people who she talks about are a lot closer to the normal, unfamous end of the spectrum. I also really don't like that whole like, oh, Kenan Thompson should have said something thing. I mean, for reasons we've already discussed regarding me not feeling like Alexa understands the realities of being a person of color on a Nick set would be different for her or somebody like me. And, I think Kenan Thompson doesn't want to bite the hand that feeds. And I have nuance for that, especially when it comes to Kenan Thompson specifically. Like, I think it's fine. I do feel really, really, really badly for Angelique Bates, but in terms of like Alexa wanting to jump on and be like, yeah, why didn't he say anything? It's just, again, pretending like anybody who didn't say something when they saw something when they were a 12-year-old is inherently bad today, I don't jive with. Doesn't work for me. I don't think it takes a perfect victim to understand that every child on the set of those shows were probably also being victimized to some extent. I mean, especially like a black man, like somebody who was a black child on the set of these shows. Like, it felt very much based on, quiet on set alone that those children were being more kind of pushed at and more known and more so like interacted with the knowledge that they were considered replaceable on the show. Like I don't know. I'm not going to get mad at Kenan Thompson for saying I didn't see anything, but I think it should be investigated. I think that's fine. I think throwing a big party and having a DJ set based on Nickelodeon shows is fine. I think not inviting somebody who you used to work with for a few years who sexts minors to your wedding is fine. I don't think that Alexa's behavior is fine. And I think that Alexa gets a lot of mileage out of showing you things that she's telling you are not fine about other people so that you won't notice how much she's doing that is just by no stretch of the imagination okay. I mean, that's kind of it. I kind of gave my conclusion in the first video about how this is not real activism. It's not real feminism. It's apology activism. And this has been a tour of that over the last week since my last video. I don't know if Alexa really is off Twitter for good because it's toxic. I didn't feel like doing a whole deep dive of her Instagram, although I will say that I've seen people complain about her posting photos of her children in compromising situations. And the fat-phobic tweets that I mentioned in my last video seem to have been deleted. They were mentioned in a very who put that there sort of way in a recent Eat Predators live stream. She did say that they happened and weren't okay at the time or now, but not a lot of, ownership over that. I mean, again, like I said, I don't really understand what the joke was, other than that she was taking pictures of people who she thought was overweight, or just Googling for pictures of people who were, like, funny to her for being overweight and then posting them without much by way of caption. So probably she couldn't have given me an explanation that I would have liked more than just these happened and they're gone now. At least they're deleted. But, they weren't directly explained. It was like, oh, something came to my attention on the subreddit kind of phrasing. I think, as we've already well established with Alexa, there is a big hesitation to, name valid criticism when it happens, because then you can't say that it's all bots, huh? I want to plug Allison Stoner's Dear Hollywood podcast again, if you're interested in people who actually have, meaningful, tangible ideas for how to change the child star system. Allison Stoner is the person who needs to be getting the credit that Alexa is currently getting, and I think Allison Stoner is much less interested in being a drama channel to the way that would get you the kind of credit that Alexa has been getting. Definitely check out Dear Hollywood. I mean, and really, there's no judgment from me if you continue to watch Eat Predators and enjoy it. I wanted to lay my thoughts out, and then so much happened after I laid my initial thoughts out that it seemed worth a revisit. But that's it. That's the video. If more happens, I will update you again. If you have something that I missed, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. If you have something that I missed or that you would have liked me to talk about more, if I'm missing some grand piece of Alexa lore, I would love to know in the comments below. I've said this before, all my questions are not rhetorical. I want to hear from you in the comments below. I love talking to people in my comment section. It's been the most exciting part about making videos so far. If you want more videos from me, I have a few uploaded at this point, but I'm still very new. So make sure that you subscribe, please, if you're interested in hearing more from me. You also can find links in the description to my Patreon, which has just officially launched. Thank you so much to everybody who has already supported me, both on Patreon and by liking, sharing, commenting on my videos, or even just watching them all the way through to this point. That's dope. This one was really long. But thanks for watching. Thanks for caring enough for me to make a follow-up. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and feelings in the comment section of my first video, as well as, I'm sure, in this one. So I will see you there. Thank you so much. Don't let your grudges make you a bad feminist. Bye.